Today on Locked On Red Wings, we're going to talk about possible coaching candidates led by Barry Trotz.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty also hosts over at Locked On Tigers. We are free and available wherever you hear your podcasts.
It is currently bases loaded in the bottom of the ninth, and the Tigers are down 4. So give you some background on what's happening behind my laptop for at least the first couple of minutes of this.
So this is Thursday's episode, Scotty, but if you happen to have watched yesterday's episode,
we're wearing the same clothes. I promise we do our laundry. At least I do. I can't speak for Brian.
Well, I do my laundry. I got the whole pile right behind me. We exposed that on the live episode.
That's all
clean clothes.
Right. We're doing this one because the Barry thing is relevant and will still be relevant 2 days from now. We both have really busy days on Wednesday. We're just doubling up and recording this on Tuesday.
Knocking it out. So, yeah, that's going to be the lead thing we talk about. Obviously, on Monday morning, the news came out that the Islanders, Lou Lamoriello, for whatever reason, is firing Barry Trotz, a guy that took a core that is in its late 20s, early 30s, so in its prime, but has no superstars and made them the best defensive team in the league, took them to 2 straight conference finals before missing this year due to extra circumstances he couldn't control, and fired him. Didn't consult to any of the players. I guess that's where we lead off, Scotty, when talking about this whole Barry Trotz thing. And we'll get to other coaching candidates as well, but I feel like now that Barry Trotz is on the market, he immediately becomes the number one candidate for every coaching vacancy in the league.
Yeah, so it's really crazy. If you go to Google right now and you just Google Barry Trotz, like the first 6 things that come up are all just 6 different teams with head coaching vacancies.
Yeah.
It's Barry Trotz Red Wings, Barry Trotz Flyers, Barry Trotz Islanders, Barry Trotz, it just goes down. Islanders, I guess not, but it just goes down all of the teams that either already have a head coaching vacancy or are expected to have one within the next couple of days. It's very, very funny. So yes, that is to say that I believe you are absolutely correct.
Yeah, it's just a really weird thing because you look at Barry Trotz's track record. Let me back up. Let me preface this by saying a couple episodes ago, I said I do not want any coach from the coaching carousel. I don't want any coach that's already been a coach in the league that's currently unemployed because of the fact that these guys get around, they are there for a couple of years, the team might be mediocre, then they move on. Addendum. Barry Trotz was not available at that time. Barry Trotz is very much that exception to my rule. He's a guy who was the head coach of the Nashville Predators since inception, took an expansion team that was brutal, brought them to relative relevancy. They made the playoffs a good chunk of the year.
Relative relevancy.
No, but seriously, they made the playoffs for 4 straight years from 2003 to 2008. They missed the playoffs in 2009. Then they made the playoffs again for another 3 straight years. The highest they ever made it was to the semifinals, but this was an expansion team. This is a team that didn't have a lot of talent outside of when they got Shea Weber. Shea Weber was their number one guy. Their first captain was David Legwand. And I don't want to talk smack about David Legwand, but you compare Shea Weber to David Legwand and who the captain of them is now. It's night and day who's the better player. In those years, they saw multiple 100-point seasons, and once you lump in the 90-point seasons like that, there were several very good Predators teams underneath the Barry Trotz regime. And then after missing the playoffs for 2 straight years in 12, 13, and 13, 14, he was finally let go. Went to the Washington Capitals and served 4 years there, where, again, the Washington Capitals were second in the Metropolitan and took first in the Metropolitan for 3 straight years. Now, granted, Capitals are a stacked team. They were a team that was considered to be a coach killer. They could not get a coach to take them to the next level. They had all the talent. The talent was there. That wasn't the question. The question is why they couldn't get it done in the playoffs. In his fourth and final season with the Washington Capitals, he finally took that team that had been on the cusp of a playoff championship, a Stanley Cup championship for like the better part of a decade. Finally took them to the summit. Finally did it. And then the Capitals decided we want a new head coach and sent him off instead of paying him. Islanders very quickly ate that up. They're like, give me Barry Trotz, who was able to take the coach-killing Washington Capitals and get them a championship. What happened? A team, like I said, did not have that great of talent. They lost John Tavares.
Yeah, that's like
that's the biggest thing.
They had just lost Tavares and everything, and he took them over, and I believe he's been over 500 with them every year that he's been there.
Including this year. The year that they missed the playoffs, they were still an above 500 team, despite the fact that they started like the first 15 games on the road because their arena wasn't finished amidst a COVID shutdown and playing a crazy amount of games at the end. Yeah, I mean, they had some existential circumstances that were out of their control, and it feels like Barry Trotz is very much the scapegoat in the situation. In his first year there, they were second in the Metropolitan Division. They lost in the second round of the Carolina Hurricanes. In his second year there, he was fifth in the Metropolitan Division and lost in the conference finals to the Tampa Bay Lightning. His third year there, they were fourth in the East because it was that weird like realignment year. They lost in the Stanley Cup semifinals because there were no conferences to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And so then this year, despite all those things, they're still above 500 team. This is a team that its core is a bunch of defensive-minded forwards. And he got career years out of all those guys who were on the books for a long time. They don't have a superstar player on that team besides maybe Ilya Sorokin, who had a fantastic year in net. But outside of that, man, he got so much out of those players. They were the best defensive team. They had one of the best goals against per game out of any team in the NHL this past season, whereas the Red Wings had the worst. So I'm baffled, Scotty, as to why the Islanders would why Lou Lamoriello, because Lou Lamoriello said, I did not talk to any of the players.
What's happened a few times in his career, as you just said, right? Like him just kind of getting chopped for unknown-ish reasons seems to be a fairly common occurrence over the years. Damn it.
Comeback falls short.
Yep.
Yeah, I got an update that it was 4-1 now. They scored a run.
Robbie Grossman, a RBI walk, the most Robbie Grossman thing you'll ever see.
That's what he does. But that brings me to, the next thing. Obviously, the next question is he the number one candidate for the Red Wings to bring in as their next head coach?
I mean, like he should be, right? Right? Like I know that we talk about like Igor, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point, but like I'm not really sure you can confidently convince anyone that there is a candidate that makes more sense to be at the top of the Red Wings like big board of head coaches than him. I'm not sure there is anybody. I'm not sure anyone's even really close. Like it probably is just Barry Trotz and then like everybody else. I'm not sure there's anybody out there. I mean, like you said, like don't really want anybody that's just in like the carousel. Sans Barry Trotz, obviously. Like I'm not really sure anyone's even close to or should be close to his level when it comes to the Red Wings, maybe ranking or prioritizing who they want to go after this offseason.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll list the myriad of I kind of listed the myriad of reasons why he should be the Red Wings head coach just now when I was monologuing about his career and his successes that he's had. But I'll get into specifically why I want him as the Red Wings head coach. But first, I do have to talk to you guys today about Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens, what is this stuff, man? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of those things. There's plenty of celebrities and athletes that are using this. I mentioned before that, The Always Sunny in Philadelphia cast is sponsored by Athletic Greens, and Glenn Howerton talks about all the time how he uses it and he loves it. Tarek Skubal, the Detroit Tigers, the one Detroit Tigers, he's actually living up to maybe even exceeding expectations this season. Through 7 shutout innings on Tuesday. Uses Athletic Greens. Could you call that a coincidence? Maybe. Could also be related. Never know. So this is why you need to use Athletic Greens. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything, while tasting so good. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover. It cost him $100 a day. He created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create that optimal nutrition routine on his own. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, just go to athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. It's a mouthful. All right. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are talking about Barry Trotz and why he is our exception to the rule of not wanting the coaching carousel. Segment 1, we brought you his career successes. Segment 2, Scotty, it's time to talk about why he needs to be behind the bench of the Red Wings this upcoming season. Why he is the leading of guys I know about, at least. Why I need him behind the bench. And it's simply because he gets the most out of players that aren't necessarily the best. I mean, you saw, I think, even though he won a cup with Washington, I think what he did with the Islanders, Scotty, is probably a better track record of what he is capable of doing to a team.
Yeah. And again, like looking through the teams that he has coached, like I think that's pretty apparent. I mean, going and not that Washington was a bad team, but that Washington was the laughing stock of like hockey for a little bit, like always, presidents that couldn't win a cup and like they, finally got the job done, then got kicked out of town. But like, got the job done on, last game.
Thanks for the cup. Go touch grass.
Right. Yeah. last game that he coached for the Capitals was one that clinched the Stanley Cup victory. That's not a bad way to go out, I guess. But it's very overly apparent that there is no other coach on the market that really even comes close. And I think that this is like the perfect combination of you're getting someone that has success, but also someone that could be your head coach through, this era of Red Wings hockey. Like it's not like you're getting someone that has no pedigree, has like no experience coming over, but you're also not getting someone that's like at the end of the line either. Like this is a perfect mix of someone who could be with the Wings for a relatively long period of time, right? Like he's going to be 60 next year. Like that's not,
in terms of hockey coaches, that's not ancient.
Right.
There's a much older ones.
Dude's coaching into their mid 70s now. So like it's, I don't know. I think that it's very much, it's really hard to find something wrong with the hire, I guess is the way I should put it.
Yeah, I mean, the only concern out of Barry Trotz is not necessarily like his fit, but the rumor that he wants to transition into a front office role, which, I mean, at his age, I could see. And with his pedigree and his mind, I could also see. So, but if he wants to be behind the bench again, then absolutely bring him on because, as I said in the first segment, he made the Islanders one of the best defensive teams in the league, and that's how they found success. What were the Red Wings horrible at last year, Scotty?
Well, certainly defense, Brian.
Certainly defense. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if you look at Barry Trotz as a defensive-minded head coach, what he could do to turn around this defense, and again, like, defense needs a lot of help, but he could definitely take this team from worst in goals against per game. If he can take them in the middle of the pack with the offense that this team also provides, I mean, you're looking at a team that could be very competitive very quickly. He gets a lot out of his players every single time. And not to mention that would take a huge load off of Alex Nedeljkovic's shoulders going forward. I mean, if guys putting up 47 saves, 46 save shutouts in the month of April and March against top-end teams like Carolina and Boston, despite that defense that he had in front of him, imagine what he could do with a middle-of-the-pack defense that if Barry Trotz can improve it that much. I mean, Alex Nedeljkovic is going to thrive. Your defense is going to thrive. Moritz Seider, the pressure on him is going to lift, and he's going to be able to have more freedom to do more in the back end, take a step forward in his growth. If you can get Dylan Larkin and Philip Zadina and Bertuzzi and Raymond, all even including the forward core, to take steps forward defensively. It starts in your own end. If you can get possession of the puck in your own end, you transition up the ice, you score goals.
Right, and also just the amount of defensive talent we have coming through the pipeline, like having that being integrated into a system that might take a step forward. And I mean, like everything needs work, man. Like everything needs work, and there's nobody on the market that has consistently for as long as Barry has, like that is exemplified and really been high end at all these areas and coach
Absolutely.
teams that are at the high end of all of these areas. And Lord knows we need just about help in every single department on the ice.
Absolutely. And it's just that's so true. And, obviously Steve Yzerman has a history of going outside the box. I mean, he knew who John Cooper was. It wasn't just some random pickup for Yzerman, but it was not an NHL coach at that time. It's his first NHL gig. And yeah, you could make the argument that the Tampa Bay Lightning's roster is stacked, but it took them several years to get to that. Now they're back-to-back Cup champions. So, I'm just basing my knowledge off coaches I know of, I know about. There are other candidates out there I'd consider, but with the pedigree that Barry Trotz has, he's the best candidate. And if you look at the timing as well, I mean, phenomenal timing just from the aspect of the Red Wings just opened up a vacancy. And then a week later, one of the most prestigious head coaches is on the market. I mean, hell yeah, he has a recent Stanley Cup. So bring him in, but you look at what the team is trying to do right now. It's not like you were a team that is... Look at the Montreal Canadiens, for instance. I don't think it's a great time for the Montreal Canadiens, who just won the lottery and are going to have Shane Wright, to bring in a coach like Barry Trotz. Because Barry Trotz is very much a coach you bring in when your team is ready to compete. That team just started a full teardown rebuild. Just began it after a Stanley Cup Finals appearance, ended up being the worst team in hockey. Getting Shane Wright helps, but it's not in their best interest to get Barry Trotz when they still have a lot of work left to go. So you look at fits. If you're Barry Trotz, you look at the Detroit Red Wings and you go, this is a team on the up and up. This is a team that's going to start their climb back to relevancy this next year. They took a step forward. They brought rookies over. One of those rookies is going to win the Calder Trophy. And if they don't, I'm just very depressed. I don't know an adjective to use. Very depressed.
Well, here's the thing.
It's just a perfect fit, isn't it?
Yes, I completely agree. But I think that is something that the Detroit Red Wings have over
the Sharks.
I would venture to say anyone,
the Flyers,
else that currently needs a new head coach or is going to need a new head coach. I'm not sure there's a better situation to inherit on the head coaching market right now. I think that's leverage that we have over everybody. Ton of cap space, unreal talent at the mine in the farm, and unreal talent at the NHL level, and young established talent at the NHL level. Like, trajectory is very much going very linear and is very much trending high, very much upward.
To the moon, as the youth would say.
Moon, as the kids would say. So I don't think that there's I don't think it shouldn't, in theory, take too much to convince anybody you get.
I feel like you see Steve Yzerman on your caller ID, you just pick up and say, "Oh, yeah."
Right. It shouldn't take too terribly much for anybody. So, or to get anybody. So I think that, yes, it's a perfect fit, but I think that that's something we have over every other coaching vacancy in the entire NHL, no matter who we are going after.
Unless like a team like the Vegas Golden Knights decide to part ways with their head coach, Peter DeBoer, in which they're a team that very much is already I would argue, at least they're absolutely a playoff contender, if not a Stanley Cup contender. They had a down year this year. So once they figure their cap problems out, that could be a huge competition. But I feel like with the pedigree that Yzerman has, and he's very good at selling people in Detroit, I think if Yzerman wants Barry Trotz could very well come here. But then again, it has to be mutual on both parts. Yzerman has to want Trotz, think it's the right fit. And Trotz also has to want to come to Detroit and coach a team that's on the up and up and not a team that's ready to compete now, like the Vegas Golden Knights could be if they secure a coaching vacancy here very shortly. Got to talk to you guys today about BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next year's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, segment 3, Thursday edition, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are talking about head coaching vacancy, and we spent the first 2 segments talking about Barry Trotz. There's another guy that was along with Barry Trotz in the Islanders with the New York Islanders, however you want to say it. Apparently, I have like 4 different ways.
Yeah, you have a lot, brother.
Yeah, clearly. His assistant coach, Lane Lambert, could very well be a connection to pull Barry Trotz over, or himself be considered to be a head coach candidate. He has that Michigan connection because if I'm not mistaken, he and Yzerman did play together for a short time in Detroit. But that also falls on that, what I like to call a fallacy of Detroit connection people always getting jobs. I don't think Yzerman's conceited enough to do nothing but nepotism and give his, old boys club. We've seen, I won't say we've seen it, but, guys like Lidstrom getting jobs and stuff, I think that speaks more to their hockey minds. I mean, Lidstrom was the best defenseman in the game and a generational talent at that position. But Lane Lambert has very much paid his dues and is ready to break out behind the bench of a head coaching team. And I think this, very much similar to Barry Trotz, this would be a good fit for him. I think for Lane Lambert as a first-time head coach, an up-and-up team could be a great chance for him to prove himself.
For sure. And again, this is a first-time head coach's dream situation. Like, you don't have incredibly high expectations the first year you're there. You can get a year under your belt of not super high expectations. And then after that, you have a ton of blossoming talent. Like it's a like I said, it's a young head coach or a first-time head coach's dream situation.
Yeah, he was an assistant coach. He's been an assistant coach with Barry Trotz since the Predators days, from 2011 all the way to New York. Just looking at it right here, so he was promoted to an assistant coach of the Nashville Predators in 2011. He was also an assistant coach with Washington Capitals during their 2018 Stanley Cup run, and he signed with the New York Islanders after Barry Trotz signed with them in 2018. So that doesn't necessarily say he was there the entire time, but he was an assistant coach with Barry Trotz 3 separate occasions. I mean, that says a lot about what Barry Trotz thinks of Lane Lambert and what Lane Lambert has provided to Barry Trotz's success as well. I mean, I think he's very much an assistant coach you could give an opportunity to.
For sure. Like I said, it really is an early head coach's, a first-time head coach's dream. And as far as pedigrees of dudes who haven't been a head coach yet, that is probably at the top of the NHL, I would imagine. I can't think of any other assistants off the top of my head that top that pedigree or resume, I should say, going into the offseason. But I mean, like either of those, like I'm Barry should be at the top of, I think, everybody's list. Like everybody wants to do like the Igor thing.
But that's where I think that's that fallacy. Like that's a perfect time to transition, Scotty, actually, because I feel like we have to talk about your Sergei Fedorovs, your Igor Larionovs. I think a guy like Lane Lambert, it's not like it's not a fallacy of the he played for the Red Wings. He has that connection. I think he paid his due as an assistant coach. Not to say Sergei Fedorov and Igor Larionov haven't. I mean, they're having much success overseas, but those guys both just signed extensions. Igor Larionov is going to be a head coach over in the KHL, and I think Fedorov just signed an extension with his own team. So I don't see those guys as realistic options, and I don't honestly see Chris Ilitch signing off on Sergei Fedorov becoming the head coach. As much as I feel like that's a silly thing to still have a beef over, I still think that Ilitch's would feel like it's a loss to have. Like, there's a why. I mean, go back to why Sergei Fedorov's name isn't hanging from the rafters. It goes back to pettiness at this point. You think that the same player they refuse to hang the name in the rafters is then going to be the head coach? I just don't see that. I'd love it. I just don't see it.
Not happening. I think, Fedorov's not happening. Igor's
more likely, but him just signing that contract.
But like Sergei is like not happening. Like that's just like it's not happening. It's not even a conversation. That's just not going to happen. Igor is something that I also don't think is going to happen, but at least is a conversation where like you can kind of go back and forth on why you think it would or why you think it wouldn't. Fedorov's not happening.
Yeah, and I'm not like trying to short their coaching pedigree either. I think they've both found a lot of success, but I would caution Red Wings fans to get all up on their hype train, because I feel like there's a bias creeping in there because they, of course, played for the Detroit Red Wings and are part of an era in which the Red Wings found a lot of success and played with general manager Steve Yzerman. So not to say that their success isn't legitimate, but just caution yourselves when picking those guys. Other guys, of course, coaching carousel guys. John Tortorella is always going to pop up. He's a guy that finds a lot of that. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit before. He finds a lot of early success with his teams before the entire team turns on him. He's not a coach that I personally would like to bring into this Red Wings team as they begin to start to compete, because in a few years, when this team is actually a Stanley Cup contender, it's going to fall apart, and it always does. He's a team. Here's what Tortorella is. He's a team that's already ready to try and win a Stanley Cup, but it just failing every time they reach the playoffs. You bring him in to try and spark that fire. He's that fire sparker. You want to bring him into a team that's already finding regular season success, but just can't do it in the postseason. Red Wings haven't even found regular season success yet. You don't want a John Tortorella quite yet. If personally, not ever, but if you're looking at a John Tortorella, those are the situations you want to bring him in, is in a team that just needs that spark. Other guy I've been hearing about, Mike Babcock. Good on that. I've seen it.
Could you imagine
bringing Mike Babcock back after all of that? He leaves us to go to Toronto and then gets canned, one, because the team's underperforming.
You imagine.
Well, and let's throw the controversy that follows him around for like the player abuse and all that. Throw that out the window. Let's play devil's advocate for 1 second and say that all that was baloney. Look at just his, not saying it was, but devil's advocate, looking at his coaching pedigree since leaving the Red Wings in 2008. He failed to get a team as stacked as the Toronto Maple Leafs to play even halfway competitive hockey his final season. He had guys like Mitch Marner down the lineup. He has a track record of doing this to players. He sat Chris Chelios. He sat Mike Modano.
Yep.
Yeah, he has a track record of doing this with established players that are going to win because he just doesn't like their vibe or their attitude. And, I mean, there's a place for that. If a guy's being toxic in the locker room, you send him a message. But Mike Babcock has a track record of doing that. And that's a big part of the reason, of course, the abuse allegations being a part of that, as to why he got fired from Toronto Maple Leafs. Sheldon O'Keefe took over and immediately saw an uptick. That team that year post Mike Babcock was night and day. So I feel like with Mike Babcock, the hockey world has passed him by.
I agree with that.
He was a fantastic coach for a long time.
I'm good on it. I'm good on that.
So as for other guys, more names are going to pop up over time. There's a lot of guys I got to do research in. I've heard names on SHL coaches that just personally guys I am not well versed in.
I think of the main like candidates, I think we covered pretty much everybody that's in like the main initial wave of
Yeah.
of candidates you're going to see.
Well, and here's the thing. In the end, Steve Eisman could end up going completely off the board with somebody we don't know. And I'll be okay with that because I trust Steve Eisman. But right now, we're debating known versus unknown. We know what Barry Trotz is. He's a known commodity. We know what he brings to a team. He brings success, regular season and postseason success, Eastern Conference appearances, Eastern Conference final appearances, back to back to lose this eventual Stanley Cup championship, Stanley Cup champions. He brings Stanley Cup champions to teams that are ready for that step. He takes a team like the Nashville Predators, fresh out of expansion, and brings them to relevancy, 100-point season, 90-point seasons. This is what he is. He is a known commodity. So when we talk about he's the favorite, we don't actually know if he's the favorite, but he's the favorite amongst us because we don't know the unknown commodities. We don't know what Steve Eisman's looking at. We just know that Barry Trotz, of the coaching candidates we know of, has the most success in the NHL and a recent Stanley Cup. So he's the guy that I'm going to endorse until Steve Eisman decides he's going with someone else. Then that's the guy I endorse because it's Steve Eisman picking him. But until then, Barry Trotz is going to be that guy I'm endorsing as the next Red Wings head coach.
I agree with everything you said.
Wonderful. I closed Patio out, so I don't know what the ad read is at the end. It's Locked On NHL. Make sure you go listen to that.
Check out Locked On NHL.
There we go.
It's cool and awesome.
And they're going to have a round table, if you haven't listened to it already, reacting to the draft lottery with the big losers and big winners of the NHL draft lottery. So make sure you check that out. They're free and available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball. Nope. I was going for like a layup. You were, I don't know what the hell that was. Don't ever do that again, please.
Same time, same place. It's your team.
Every day.
Every day. Oh, wow. We went different ways there.